welcome all ladies and gentlemen to this session. It's a pleasure to host such a experienced and diverse panel, names that we respect in the industries that they work in. So it's quite a pleasure to do this. So I'd like to introduce the panel. I would like to start off with Dr. Elizabeth Gashenga. I like to call her the boss of my boss, but a friend also and a colleague, having worked with her for quite a number of years in Strathmore University. Dr. Gashenga is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Strathmore University in the Division of Academic and Student Affairs. She's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and holds a doctorate from the University of Western Sydney and a Master of Environmental Law and Bachelor of Law from the University of Nairobi. She has tutored corporate and business law at the University of Western Sydney and at Strathmore University, and has worked as a faculty manager at Strathmore and as a legal and knowledge consultant for Hamilton Harrison and Matthews, Kenya. Karibu, Dr. Gashenga, say hello.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Regina. And yes, good afternoon to all our visitors.
Thank you. So also in the panel is Eric Musyoka. I think his name speaks for himself. Eric Musyoka is a renowned and prolific music producer in Kenya. I speak for myself when I say he's the genius behind a lot of music that I've enjoyed growing up. So Eric started off as part of a rap group, Nanoma, composed of high school friends, Mike, Tony, and Steve. They performed together before he decided to pursue a career in music production, working with big names in the industry such as Uko Flani, Mau Mau, Giuliani. He's also worked with Nameless, Waire, Sauti Sol, quite a number of names that we all love to hear in the industry. He has also collaborated with heavyweights in Eastern Africa, such as Professor J and Kleptomaniacs, and worked with groups such as P Unit. So, he has also worked in films as a film sound composer, where he's had on Kenya's and Africa's hit film, Nairobi Half-Life and Veve. Welcome, Eric.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. So on the panel also is Bilha, who has worked in the hospitality industry. Bilha is a general manager at Tamarind, Mombasa. She is a zealous and driven hospitality professional who sees herself as an innovative thinker with strong insight and passion for quality food and beverage dining experiences. Bilha has been at Tamarind for 3 years, as first as operations manager and then as general manager till the year present. I enjoyed working with Bilha as a colleague in Strathmore University. Karibu, Bilha.
Thanks, Regina. It's great to be back to Strathmore.
Thank you. So I think we have lived through this pandemic, which is a very new experience for all of us. I don't doubt that there's anybody who can say they've not been impacted by COVID in one way or another. My view for this session today would probably to look at the positive side, if any, of the pandemic. Focusing on the negative, a lot of job loss has been experienced in the hospitality industry, in the entertainment industry, and also quite a number of challenges in the education sector. And since we are living through them and trying to get out of them, I think the new normal now is that we are going to be living with COVID for a very long time. And it seems that we need to adjust our way of working to live with it. So maybe our focus could be on, is there any positive learning that we can come out with from this pandemic, from the experience of the pandemic? I'd like to start off with Dr. Gashenga.
Thank you, Regina. And like I said, thank you very much, all of you who are here. And Bilha and Eric, it's a pleasure to be on this panel with you. So thinking about the positive impact from an education, especially a higher education perspective, what I would say is one of the greatest positive impacts of the pandemic is that it has forced us to accelerate in what the world is calling the fourth industrial revolution. So as you all know from experience, we're moving into a very digitized society, and higher education has been trying to adapt itself to this space. And as you all know, usually higher education is one of the most traditional spaces to be. So it's a conversation that had been going on, but I think COVID suddenly forced us to get into that space. Whereas previously, I guess many of us were stuck in the old styles of teaching. Suddenly we found ourselves having to use technology. Those who were born before computers had to behave as if they were digi kids, yeah, and learn the new skills of teaching. I think another positive that has come from this is we've moved into what we kept calling the blended strategy. So a situation where you flip the classroom, yeah. So you don't always imagine that you're the knowledge source, but that you also recognize the fact that students have access to a lot of the material you're teaching digitally and from a technology perspective. So like in Strathmore, what we're trying to do is for every 3-hour class, give the students a single hour where you flex it a little bit more. So you make it perhaps like a more learner-centered environment for them to acquire the skills. And then of course, internationalization. So whereas in the past, it was difficult to have collaboration between international faculty just because of distance and some of the challenges, and even financial challenges, especially moving from the south to the north. Now with a click of a button, we are collaborating in terms of research, in terms of teaching. So there's a lot of benefit at the level of learning. And then also we've seen positives in things which perhaps we thought were negatives, yeah. So I think the fact that we've lost the traditional social contact has led us to appreciate it more. So I definitely know that when students come back, they're really happy to see each other. Yeah? Whereas previously they would have been happy to be wherever they were. Yeah? I think after a year of being out of campus, people are more cognizant of the fact that, you know, those social relations really help. Yeah? And that there's only so much you can do in terms of remaining in the digital space for purposes of getting to know each other. So that I'd say would be the highlights of the positivity.
Thank you, Dr. Gashanga. Maybe I'd pose the same question to Belha. In an industry where we saw a lot of job losses, big names pulling out of Kenya, shutdowns, the planes were grounded and we couldn't move around. Is there anything positive really that could come out of the pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. And Regina, I like that you started this off on a bit of a positive note, because the industry struggled so much and it really doesn't warrant to take any of our time to look at the negative effects. I think they just really stand out. So the first thing is that it has led to the growth and development of products that are suited to the domestic market. And I mean, for instance, last year, Kenyans flocked Masai Mara. And just speaking to industry colleagues that work there, it's amazing that they were fed by the local market, which is something that never really happened in the past because of our over-reliance on the international traveler. So it's quite exciting to see the hospitality industry tailor-making products specifically for the domestic market. The second thing and for this I would use more of a tamarind example, is that we have reassessed our processes, our procedures, and why, question why things are done a certain way. And I think that's a positive impact of COVID. It's just got us to get back on the ground and see and question why we do things the way we do them. So for instance, at Tamarind, and I've seen this in other restaurants as well, is menus are now much smaller than they used to be. You'd have, 10, 20 items on your menu, items on your menu, and that leads to having more staff in the kitchen, higher overhead costs. And so such changes in the way we do things have been a key positive impact of the pandemic. And I think thirdly, it was just another test that ascertained the resilience of the hospitality industry. this industry has been put to test several times. A key example would be the post-election violence, terror attacks, and even globally, things like the financial crisis. So there have been times in the past where the industry has been put to test, maybe not to this extent, but I must say this affirms and continually has shown us that the industry is quite resilient. And really the question that arises now is, how do we adapt to these factors that are shaping the future of the hospitality industry? Thank you.
Thank you, Bila, for quite some good insights there. When we look at the entertainment industry, was it possible in any way to be prepared for this pandemic? And there are a lot of hashtags of artists who are struggling through making a living during the pandemic and such. Was it possible to prepare yourself for the impacts of the pandemic? And what is the positive that came out of this?
Good afternoon, everybody. And
Good afternoon.
The positive side of the COVID thing is we've just gotten more, we've accelerated our acceptance of digitization of content. Definitely reggae stopped when COVID came. So all the concerts were cancelled, all the productions that were happening had to come to a halt. So a lot of artists really struggled to make ends meet. And the positive thing that we've really learned from what COVID has thrown to us is that moving forward, we have to diversify our way of consuming content and not just relying purely on physical concert experience. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to have the resources to mobilize my artists and some other artists that I've worked with previously to create what we called online YouTube concerts. And with that, we still kept our audiences entertained, even though not physically present, because I mean, the greatest experience for a musician, I mean, for a consumer of music is when you're right in front at the concert, Watching a 2-hour concert is very different from going to a 2-hour concert, because there are other auxiliary things that accompany a physical concert. There'll be food, there'll be, some drinks here, some yanks here, some, friends here, the vibe is very, very different. And you've seen what has happened the moment there's any single window to even go and watch the rally. Guys first go to party, then come watch the rally. So that's something that you cannot take away from entertainment. Yeah. But COVID is here to stay. How can we adapt? The beauty is that people are now consuming content online a lot. Streaming services are recording, record-breaking numbers of streams. And right now, our biggest royalty earner is streaming services. Something that we were very reluctant in accepting, because we were like, they pay us very little money, we don't understand how these things work. But COVID has accelerated that, as Elizabeth had mentioned. Going into the digital space has just been accelerated faster by COVID being there. And it was an inevitable choice for musicians who never really adopted it, but now it's their mainstay. So accepting that's the reality of things to come, it's a good thing to know that you can complement your, merchandise, your concert and your physical sales with digital streaming, and also create online experiences that people have never experienced before.
Well, I'm glad I have you to thank for all the concerts we enjoyed at home with my family. I remember at some point, you were sharing links. This is coming up next Friday and such, and we were dancing away at home. One constant theme is that we've had to change the way we do things in this different industry. That's a common statement, even in the education sector, in the hospitality sector. Maybe what I would ask you, Eric, is then what new skills do people need to have to navigate this? Like for the artists that you have to manage and everything, what would you recommend are the skills they need to have?
The business acumen right now has to change, and their perspective and how they sell themselves as brands has to really change. Previously, artists relied on physical concerts because, one, the amount of money you make in a physical concert is way much more than you make when you sell your content. So we've had to, sit with our artists and explain to them that this is what is happening in the industry, this is what you can change, this is how you can, you know, improve yourself in terms of managing your finances. Because right now they are trickling in, they are there, it's a constant income, but you can't compare with what was there before. Another important skill that we've had to acquire is the use of technology. Complete reliance on technology, from creation to advertising to marketing to dissemination of content. It's a chain we were not so keen in embracing, but with the look of things, there is no other way. And then also collaborating with other people, whether regional or interregional or international. So we have had to establish networks, create links with people who we can partner with and work to create content that, you know, caters for a bigger online community. Previously, we were so centered and focused on, you know, doing content for ourselves, but now COVID has allowed us to have access to a bigger international audience than we have. So we have had to learn how to collaborate and participate in content creation with foreigners.
Dr. Gashanga, is this the same case in the education industry? Are there skills that you know you need to have to be able to adjust to the new changes?
Thanks, Regina, for that. And I think we resonate across industries. But perhaps in terms of skills, I think when we hear skills, we immediately think of, you know, technological tools or technology competency in order to navigate in this world. But I think one of the things that we've learned from the COVID experience is that more than focusing on a particular skill, perhaps what we need is a very high level of versatility. Yeah? Because, you know, COVID keeps throwing different things at us. So just when you think you have it all planned out, I think especially in the university, we've seen it, that, you know, suddenly you've come back and then you're locked, or you're just about to come back, then you're locked. Yeah. So it's, I think one of the things it's taught us is that you have to be ready to, you know, take on whatever change comes around you. And then I think the other thing that we've learned is that you can't be complacent. Yeah? Like I said, in higher education, I think we had become somewhat complacent. And, you know, we knew you always do things the same way, you know, starting from the Socratic idea of a university. But I think now we've had to realize that, hey, look, there are disruptions. Yeah? And when there are disruptions, they can disrupt even the higher education sector, which we may have thought is untouchable. So I'd say for me, those are the like underlying skills that we will require moving into the future. So not just COVID, but thinking about the future and even thinking about future pandemics, God forbid. Yeah.
Amen to that, God forbid, but anyway, this is life, it's rich. I think also the importance of this question is to think that how do we come out of this thriving, Bilha? I'll throw the same question to you, the kind of skills that will ensure that we come out of this thriving.
Yeah, thank you. And in hospitality, it does resonate the same way as in entertainment and education, where the adoption of technology is paramount. And I looked at it in technical skills and soft skills. And from a technical skill perspective, where, you know, data analysis has not been something that the hospitality industry has adopted quite well. And in fact, even in education courses around hospitality and tourism, this has not even been, you know, a cost that has been factored in. But I can see, for instance, in the master's program at Strathmore, that now it's being adopted because it is critical for us to start making our decision pegged on data. And from a soft skills perspective, which also ties in with understanding the market, is really learning the changes in consumer behavior, because the customer has the traveler, the guest that's coming to a restaurant or a hotel, they've completely changed. Their behaviors, their patterns are completely different. And we need to analyze that, to assess where are they spending their money, what are their shopping habits, How are they, there's working from home. How does that affect our industry? And so a key skill is data analysis around changing consumer behaviors. The focus on health and wellness and sanitary procedures is so paramount now. I tell you that even with the easing of restrictions around travel, the vaccination, it's still not enough. Like confidence, security, and comfort are key. And hotels and restaurants have to be very transparent with their sanitary procedures, strict health and safety regulations. They have to post this on their websites. They have to communicate this clearly, because the future of a traveler is that they will Google the health and safety processes in place before traveling. And I find that is a key skill or key attitude as well to have in the hospitality industry. I think but also to emphasize on that in a more of a positive way, because we've been hard hit, is that it is still a good time to learn, to get into the hospitality space, despite the challenges that the year has put across. And there's this, it would be tactful to take advantage of this downtime to really reinvent ourselves, because we still have the curfew. As an industry, our working hours have drastically dropped, and it's a good opportunity to reinvent ourselves, because even the industry is being reinvented. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I'm happy you happened to mention the element of taking this downtime to learn. And you see, we've all mentioned that we've had to leverage on technology so as to be able to survive this period of the pandemic. And so the attraction for parents now, even our alumni who are advising people on the courses to take, would be that lead them to tech, and something that is related to tech, because this is the future of tech. What would you speak of somebody who thought maybe a few years ago hospitality is for me? Do I still pursue that line, or now I just go into tech?
It's still an industry that holds significant importance. So, for instance, with the fact that we live in a globalized world has not changed. That has not been affected by COVID. So, and speaking as a millennial, travel is not a privilege, it's a right. We want to travel, we prioritize travel, so that's not going to change. So the demand for travel will still be there, in my opinion, and it will only continue to grow. Secondly, would be that the importance and significance of tourism in our economy as a country, and even globally, really cannot be underscored. And so therefore, it is in the best interest of government, of private sector, to see the industry blossoming again. And as I had said earlier, the resilience of this industry has been put to test in the past. So this is not the first time we have a crisis there. And it is a very malleable industry. There's so much that we can pick and learn and change and adapt and just get the industry back on its feet. So those would be the three reasons I would recommend for someone to get into the hospitality industry.
I'm wondering, are there things now at this point we'll agree that have become obsolete, like in the entertainment industry? Is it possible that we'll never organize an event and have people attend, or, but we've already said that every opportunity that arises will come. But what are those things that we probably need to get used to never seeing again? We'll start saying, BC, we used to do this, and now it's post-pandemic.
I personally, from my experience and what our industry is going through, there's really nothing that has changed that much, despite just the fact that we cannot interact together, because entertainment is a human experience. Yeah, you cannot disassociate people gathering and entertainment. Yeah, there's a lot that revolves around it. So even if we are not gathering now, we're just waiting for the opportunity when we'll gather. We cannot say that since now gathering is gone, there'll never be concerts again. I mean, it's a massive industry. It's a massive industry that thrives on social gatherings. And we are seeing the efforts being made to create vaccines, to just make sure that people come back together. Like we are seeing concerts have opened up in the US and in Europe. Guys are back to festivals. I mean, it's unfortunately the nature of entertainment is the social nature of human beings. We cannot cut that off. There's nothing that we are not gonna stop seeing that is currently happening with us adapting to the pandemic that is gonna change how we interact and how we roll off our plans and how we schedule our activities and everything. Generally, what has happened is that people have become very conscious of budgets now. And the thing that I'm seeing guys gravitating towards is trying to make content way cheaper, because now something that used to be done by like 30 people, now 15 people are doing it. Like we have a very big movie that was done in the pandemic era. It has broken records. And it was done with a very skeleton crew. So that is something that is going to that has gone to show that actually this thing can be done by a much smaller team than what we were used to working with. So there's that aspect. Definitely budgets are down, and that is going to stay for a while until things pick up to the point whereby guys can return to full productions and full crews and full concerts and everything. Yeah, pretty much in terms of how we manage our finance and how we distribute and manage resources within the entertainment, definitely that is something that has, that has got to be looked into.
Okay, great. I think as you were speaking, I'm thinking, then what would you say to a young upcoming artist? Yeah, you see there's this scaling down of the number of people that you need and such, but the industry is still very varied. How would you encourage this young coming artist or music producer that, post-pandemic, the entertainment industry is still going to come up? How would you encourage them?
Honestly, the hard fact is that the music business is a difficult business. Just like any other business, it has its own shares of challenges. For me, what I'd encourage them is just to have a positive outlook and to know what to capitalize on, because the pandemic hasn't really created a totally different environment for us to operate in. Yeah, entertainment is still the same, music is still the same. A keyboard is still a keyboard. That is not going to change. When you are getting into the music business, you just have to know that there'll be challenges beyond what we've seen. Perhaps another one. I mean, I don't think in the history of my existence I've seen anything that has challenged my business acumen as what COVID has done. But I've been able to weather it because of the positive outlook I have, and perhaps the structures that I've taken to make sure that I can manage myself properly when such things come. And that is in investing in yourself, in your brand, and just managing the resources that you have. Nothing has changed. People will still consume content, whether there's COVID or no COVID. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Gashanga, are there some things that, if I'm starting a master's later now as an alumni, I'm finished with my undergraduate, that when I come back to class, I will never find, or, it's just going to be adjustment with the new additions?
Thanks for that question, Regina. Actually, as I was listening to Eric, I was thinking it's the same thing, in the sense that, I think the most important player in the whole universe is the human person. I know people like Jeff Bezos might challenge that with all this discussion of who goes to space and what there is there. So if we think about the centrality of the human person, then we start to realize that things could change, yeah. But I think the things that will change are things that are perhaps going to help us to improve those social relations among us. So I see technology as simply contributing to helping us to achieve the human good. Yeah. So as Eric was saying, I mean, if it's concerts, as soon as people have an opportunity, they're going to go back to concerts, because that's something central to human persons. Well, not the concert itself, but the relation, the sharing, the wanting to be together. So in terms of that, I don't think there's going to be any change. And I don't see that aspect of the human person becoming obsolete. So true that there'll be different ways of achieving it. So I see ourselves using technology in a better way so as to be able to bring out those things that are critical to the human person. And then, back to what we were saying previously, I think what is going to become obsolete is complacency. Yeah, because suddenly you will realize that if you become complacent, you won't survive. Yeah, so I think we're going to be put we've realized that we are constantly on the move and have to be on our feet so as to make sure that we don't get left behind. Yeah, but centrality of the human person, I think we're seeing hospitality, music industry, it's all the same, that the human relations will never cease to be critical, and that space will never become obsolete.
Thank you for that. As you say, then there's no room for complacency. How would you speak towards leading people, managing people around your space where you work? How the experience has been and what has worked for you really, to making sure that we are all moving and doing as is required for the pandemic season. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that question. In fact, reflecting as you were speaking, I was thinking probably the one who had to be least complacent and most versatile was myself. Yeah. Because unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say, I had traveled. Yeah, I traveled during the pandemic. That was early March, when things seemed relatively stable in Kenya. Yeah, but I can assure you, within the space of a week, life changed in a very serious way. Yeah, and suddenly the borders of Kenya closed. I happened to be in Australia, and they also decided to close their borders so as to be able to contain the pandemic. So from one day to the next, I suddenly had to start thinking, how do I adapt and continue working despite the fact that I'm 7 hours behind, thousands of miles away. So as a leader, it puts pressure in, and good pressure, in terms of rising up and not thinking, well, good luck to the leaders I've left behind because I'm far away, so I'll pray for you guys to sort it out. Yeah. So I think even as a leader, it was very important to build personal resilience, yeah, and some level of grit, yeah, and to realize that you have to make hard decisions. Most of those decisions you don't know how they're going to go. You don't know whether they'll be positive or negative. Um, so those were some of the things that were critical. I think many people will also agree with us that as a leader, I think we've had to you be a source of reassurance, despite the fact that the environment is not reassuring. Yeah. So I think the last thing that people needed was that you appear and you suddenly, what you're sending is, uncertainty. So that was critical, and I think it continues being critical. Then positive energy. I think some of you who are here have probably heard me constantly talk about positive energy. So first of all, as a leader, to try as much as possible to send out that positive energy, but then also to require it of the people who you lead. Yeah? Because in order for us to find solutions, as you said at the beginning of this discussion, if we focus on the negative, then, we sit in a hole and we cry and, ask God why he cast us with COVID. Yeah. But I think when we gain positive energy and then we learn how to pass positive energy, then we realize all of us together can find solutions. Yeah. So again, positive energy, and then communication, two-way communication. Yeah. I think some of the greatest innovation and lessons we've learned as leaders have come from precisely the people we lead. Yeah. I have to tell you, I've had a couple of conversations, actually quite a number of conversations with members of the student body. And a lot of the things that you're seeing us implementing here at the university, a good number of those ideas have actually come from the students. Yeah. So for example, you'll see us putting up more gazebos around the campus, initiative from the students. Yeah. one of the reasons why we felt the pressure of coming back, initiative from the students, especially the current second years. I remember some young person telling me how, you know, if I was to be asked, sincerely speaking, if I have a friend at Strathmore University, I'd have to answer no. Yeah. Because the only way I know my classmates is virtually. Yeah. So it's also listening to people. You may not always be able to do the things that they would like you to do, but I think even just the fact of those you're leading feeling that you've listened to them, and also vice versa. Yeah, those of us who are leading to feel that the people who we're leading are actually listening to us. All those, I think, are lessons we've learned from a leadership perspective. So I think those are the insights I would share.
Thank you. Bill, I pose the same question to you. How is it like leading people during the pandemic, such difficult times, but then still working towards coming out of this thriving?
Yeah. Thank you, Regina. Maybe just to paint a picture of what it was like in our industry especially last year. We were completely shut down, just like the education industry. And so there was no working from home like many other industries. In our organization, we just had the executive team that was working on strategic work just to keep us engaged through the period, about 3 months that we were shut. And we lost about more than 50% of our workforce, inevitably. And you can only imagine the staff that were at home, anxious, wondering whether they'll come back to work. People didn't lose their jobs because they were not good at what they did. They lost it. It was just inevitable. And as a leader, this taught me to learn to lead with empathy and just accept and be very mindful about the current situation. It's very easy as a leader to demand for more now because the pressure is there. But empathy, I must say, is one key thing that guided myself and our team here through the pandemic. The other thing has been developing a personal and organizational adaptability, just really striving to be so adaptable because, I mean, one day we're in business and a month later there's an announcement and restaurants are shut or the curfew has been imposed and you have to make changes. So leaders, as a leader, I've learned to really adopt a growth mindset and conditioning myself to question like why I think a certain way, why I do things this way, and really eliminate limiting ways of thinking or of the way we have done things in the past, and really striving to be so adaptable. And this capability also includes a measure of building resilience, as Dr. Gashenga has said, taking care of your personal well-being, because you cannot lead if you're not feeling and feeding yourself, and really learning to cope with stressful times. So again, change management as we know it has been different. Now, leading change in this new brave world means that a leader must be able to really communicate and over communicate, if there's anything like that, the vision for the kind of change that the organization wants to have, and really helping the teams to adopt these new practices and manage any inevitable resistance that may occur, of which has been there. Because, and an example of resistance, dealing with staff, it's quite difficult because, for instance, multi-skilling is now a common trend in our industry. So you could easily have a waiter who is also given a task in housekeeping, whereas before, if they're a waiter, that's all that they do. But this multi-skilling, upskilling is new to many organizations locally, and there are times that there has been some resistance to this change. But I think underlying all this is also the need to let go of expectations of any form of certainty because of the constant change. As I said, one day business is operating, the next day it's shut. You need to make snap decisions. And yeah, so just getting comfortable with the idea that as a leader, I'm not always going to have clear answers to provide to my team, and that, that I will not always be able to project certainty, and therefore maintaining a very adaptable mindset and cascading this to my team is very paramount. So I think that also ties in with self-awareness and constantly critiquing that as a leader.
Thank you, Bilha. I think Eric, as a leader in the industry, given all the experience that you've had over the past 22 years, what would you say has worked for you so as to be able to show the example for others and really to mentor those in the entertainment industry during this period?
There is something I call the 3 Ps: patience, persistency, and perseverance. And as Dr. Elizabeth had mentioned, there's something called grit. It's not the first time that I've been in a situation whereby a pandemic has caused severe lack of work and, just disrupted the business. There have been other factors throughout the years that I've been doing music and being in entertainment that I've seen situations that have had, consequences way beyond what we've seen right now. But the biggest difference with this pandemic is that it's something totally out of your control. Other situations have been things that you've been able to control, and you've been able to be in a position to negotiate your way out or in. But with a pandemic, I mean, it's affected everybody, even the people who you can negotiate with to help you out in such difficult times have also vastly been affected. So you kind of feel like you're very isolated. You're very isolated. But again, as somebody who is in business, your vision is still very important. Yeah. Giving up for me is never an option. Yeah. I'll try my best up to the point whereby I cannot do it anymore, or whereby I feel like it's no longer working for me as a businessman. So what I would encourage, what I would say that has worked for me is just being patient and understanding that tough times don't last long. Yeah, okay, tough times don't last. Let me not say long. Long is relative depending on who you are, yeah, and your level and your degree of patience. But tough times don't last. Yeah. There's always, a brighter prospect in the horizons, yeah. And life is a marathon. Business is a marathon. If you are able to adjust yourself and adopt to how you can maintain yourself, your reserves, your resources to just see you through, that is a key skill that I've learned over the years. Because I've been in similar situations and I've had to adapt a lot of things. You have to change a lot of things. Your business model, your lifestyle, your expectations, all those things have to be adjusted to fit your current challenges. Yeah.
Quite inspiring. Thank you for that. I think so far I've received one question on chat directed to Bilha. I welcome you also to forward any questions that you may have to the panel. I'm not sure if you're receiving questions in your private inbox. So Bilha, one is with regards to practical, let's say, adjustments that you've had to do to be able to adjust to the pressures of COVID, yeah? Like, so there were reduced guests. So what do you do? Do you have outdoor events, Uber food, etc.?
Okay, thank you, Regina. Of course, we have had to adapt completely, and I think adaptability has been the name of the game for our industry. I will use Tamarind as an example once again, where I'm based in Mombasa, and Tamarind Mombasa is a high-end restaurant. And one thing about high-end fine dining restaurants is we don't do deliveries. We don't sell burgers and fries. We sell, for our concept, for instance, we sell lobster, oysters, and that's what we've been known for the last 50 years. Then COVID happens. And what do? Do you still say that, oh, we are fancy and we cannot do deliveries? No, we adapt. And we created a virtual kitchen on our delivery platforms. We call it Ukwaju Bites. Now, on Ukwaju Bites, you get chicken wings with fries at 500 shillings compared to, our lobster and baked potatoes would go for about 5,000 shillings. So you're able to adapt and diversify the product. So our virtual kitchen, Ukwaju Bites, has enabled us to reach a new market, to penetrate a totally different clientele that we never have imagined we would get to. And it just diversifies our revenue streams. And still on the point of dealing with the reduced covers is, we have also gotten into office delivery. Again, something we would never have considered doing. And that's why I look at this as a positive impact as well, is, office deliveries, and that has also been a new thing that we have had to do to cope. There's also matters to do with revenue management that has changed. Before, when you work on your budgets or revenue projections, we would do it annually, but now there is more of short-term projection and planning. So we work on our budgets on a 2-month basis, and it keeps changing. We may have to review them. So short-term forecasting has been another way of coping with this. And also partnerships, rather, working with other organizations in terms of, partnering more with, say, the delivery platforms, and collaborating to be able to get better rates to the customers, so that, the spend could be a bit higher. And I think the last thing I would talk on is creation of products that are tailor-made to the market. As I spoke on this earlier, just really seeing, okay, who is the market now? For Tamarind, we're based in Nyali, and it's assessing, what does the market in Nyali want? This consumer behavior, how are they spending? What do they need? What is trending? And create a product around that. And social media has been really good for a brand like ours to push events, to push new product creation, new products, to really diversify and offer a product that is actually what the market wants, not what we think the market wants. And that ties in because, you see, many organizations have also been very reliant on corporate business, and that at the moment has really decreased. And people are working from home, so if they used to come to your organization for board meetings, now they're doing it virtually. So adaptability has been one key area that we have had to rely on.
Thank you, Bilha. I think the take home from all this is that change was inevitable, change was a must, and it has only made us better. I like the aspect of keeping positive energy, as mentioned by Dr. Gashenga. And as I started this webinar, I said, as we look at this, we focus on the positive, because if we look at the negative too much, it becomes a bit depressing. There's a question that has come on chat, and it's with regards to mental health. So there's great increment. Actually, it's not a question, is that we have seen great increment in mental health. What has been done to support staff and students, yeah? So this is a comment of the increment of mental health support so as to better support staff and students, which is also a positive coming out from COVID. I'd like to not leave out this question from being answered about the industry striving to deliver decent work and employment conditions for workers despite COVID. Maybe you could speak to that also, Bilha.
I think that's a good question, and something that we are struggling with and trying to deal with on a day-to-day basis, because on one end, we are trying to cut costs. So on the other end, we still, the people that we work with is the most critical part of our business. So as I mentioned earlier, we lost about 60% of our team here, and so the team that came back, we had salary cuts, and I think that the way our salary cuts were managed and how we've managed them is to ensure that even the lowest level of team member at Tamarind still gets the basic salary, and in turn also we give service charge. Now, what service charge has really helped us to achieve, and most hotels do give service charge. Service charge is basically a percentage of that's rendered on a bill that's provided to staff on an equal measure. So now you have fewer staff in the organization, and service charge is being offered. Now, what that has done quite successfully is that people have seen that, oh, the fewer we are, the more the service charge. Whereas before, they were not, our teams were never ready to do extra chores. So now I'm seeing, a waiter ready to perform another task because they don't want me to hire someone else to do the job. And so as a manager, that I'm looking at it as a cost-cutting approach, but it is good, in terms of it's good to see the buy-in from our teams in terms of them saying that let's put in our best foot forward, let's work harder, let's try and deliver, and also we see the benefit in our pockets. Yeah, as I said earlier, it's the adaptability, and as a leader, being able to communicate these changes, to be able to get that buy-in from your team. So that's what I'd speak to that on.
Thank you, Bilha. I think it would be important to know that maybe Dr. Gashenga has lived through the same experience and can share on her experience with regards to of the employment of staff and ensuring that you maintain maybe a particular standard. Maybe she could share experience on how they managed that as a university.
Thank you. A number of the people here may still be working at the university, including yourself, Regina. But anyhow, happy to share. So I think one of the immediate things we did was we did some level of scenario planning, which was pegged a lot on the economic outlooks that we were seeing prepared either by McKinsey or any other of these KNBS, and other bodies that collect statistics and can give you outlooks with respect to what we're looking at. So we had 3 scenarios where, of course, worst case scenario, how do you plan for that? Most likely and somewhat unlikely, yeah? So on the basis of that, then we had to start making financial decisions. And obviously, one of the most critical investments in any industry, I'd say, is staff, yeah? And I think it's the same in all industry, that normally staff costs are your highest costs. Yeah? And perhaps Eric also feels the same in terms of some of the stuff you do. So for us, being a people-centered university, that was like one of the things we most agonized with and had to try and do all manner of things to make sure that we didn't leave out any of the staff members. So that's why we adopted strategies such as deferrals as opposed to salary cuts. Of course, when you go into the space of deferral, from a risk perspective, your risk asset goes so high up because you actually have a loan. It's just that the one who's granting you the loan happens to be your staff members. That has its benefits, but it also has its negatives. But that was one of the key strategies of trying to see how do we balance looking after people while keeping in mind the fact that there could be a worst case scenario that would make it very difficult for you to continue with the commitments that you would usually have towards your staff. And then, of course, as Bilha says, the basic wage and making sure that you look after the people who are at that level. Now, in the case of Strathmore, I'd say most of our staff members, even the ones who do the manual tasks, are usually slightly above the basic wage. But then also we have, a population of staff members who are you could say are above the basic wage. But when you do the calculations in terms of standard of living, etc., you realize that if you defer whatever percentage of this person's salary, you'll actually be affecting their capacity to live. Yeah. So on the basis of that, we had to make tough decisions where we agreed that you won't touch salaries of this amount all the way below, which means, of course, that the people above that income bracket then have to take a greater deferral. So tough conversations we had to have and implement. And then of course we try to see how then can we, now that you know you're deferring salaries, how do you help the staff members? Yeah, so negotiations with RBA so as to, you know, postpone the payment of some of the monies that are due, the provident funds, discussions with banks who we have relations with, so that they would not, you know, they would suspend the loan obligations of our staff members, possibilities of increasing the extent to which we cover staff medical expenses as far as we could. So I think, yes, there were challenges, but I think, like I keep saying, if you work with the people, then the people also give you solutions. Yeah, because I think ultimately all of us are interested in making sure that we survive. So either we float all of us together or we sink all of us together. Yeah? So I guess, you know, those are some of the things which we had to think through so as to keep the boat afloat, but who are actually the crew, yeah, the crew that is keeping the boat afloat.
Some great insights there. Yes, as you say, we are still here and we are grateful for that. Yeah. I think this session has been very, very eye-opening. And as we said from the beginning, is to give us some insights of how we come out of this thriving. We're still in it for the long haul, or we're just going to say that you're going to get used to living with COVID amongst us. And so reflecting on some of these things can also influence how we're doing things right now, what needs to be changed, and pick up some good ideas. Maybe I would finish up by asking Eric, what's there lined up in the entertainment scene that we should watch out for, yeah? For this 2021, where we thought we'd be done with the pandemic.
Well, reggae is still stopped, but at the moment, there's really nothing much per se. We've kind of adopted an online content creation model whereby everything is now just centered towards just pushing our customers to consume our content online. And with the uncertainty that lies ahead, especially next year being also a political year, we are going to see a slight lull in the industry until things pick up, because generally entertainment is affected by politics. But now pandemic has, you know, made it even worse for us, worse in quotes. Yeah, it's just that we are just adapting to see how things go and where everything aligns itself, because, you know, entertainment doesn't exist in a sphere of its own. It's intricate and it's tied to other things, you know, and entertainment is the last thing people will think about. You cannot go to a concert without having food. So once everything just starts to align up and the country opens up and the world just opens up, slowly people now will be more relaxed and looking forward to spend some time together in social gatherings. And then for us, it will be just business as usual. So at the moment, I can't concretely say there's anything major planned, because again, you can only plan big things when there are social gatherings. And right now, that being a prohibiting factor, we are just, you know, taking one step at a time and just observing how things go. And, you know, when he opens up a little, we rush in, do what we can, and he closes a bit. And, you know, it's nipata potea at the moment.
To the panel, I wish to thank you once more for being here. I would like to open up for parting shots from each and every one of you so that we can close the session unless there are any other questions on chat. But so far the time has been managed very well and we are on schedule. So Bilha, maybe a parting shot from you to encourage those in the session.
We've got to adapt in the hospitality industry. We have to understand what the consumer wants and tailor make our products accordingly. I'll just give one more example that's just come to mind, which is Art Cafe. So this is a coffee shop that's always just done coffee, some food, great cakes and pastries. But they recently opened Art Cafe Market. So this is a restaurant that's now into the retail space. So that's just an example of what we're talking about in terms of adapting and just really getting our thoughts out of what we've always been doing. Thanks for having us, Regina.
Thank you. So the key word is adapt, and adapt. Dr. Gashenga?
Thanks, Regina, for the opportunity. So, so first and foremost, it's probably what I've kept saying about the need for versatility. And if you're versatile, then you become innovative. I have seen an interesting insight made by Pauline about how, we're going to see a change in the market space. I think we're seeing aggressive competition coming from international universities. In fact, recently I was amused. It was impressive to see the British High Commissioner actually advertising for unis abroad, which perhaps in the past would have been unthinkable. So yes, we're seeing a lot of push from the international market, but just to use that as an example, to see it also as an opportunity. So many of the students will tell you, I can't travel, or why should I be in Harvard but sitting in front of my computer in the house because I can't travel. So great opportunity for us to then see, okay, so how do we capture this particular market of students? So be versatile. If you're positive, you'll see the opportunity in even in the even in the darkest moments. So yeah, but be versatile, be positive.
Great, thank you so much. And a parting shot from Eric, happy birthday to you.
For me, my parting shot is okay. There are several. Like I would say two of them. That nothing lasts forever. So even bad times don't last forever. Just adapt your ways and yourself to just managing the challenges that have been thrown your way. And secondly, when the opportunity comes back again, I'm sure everybody has learned a lesson with these challenges that have come, and you'll be better prepared to face another challenge that comes your way. It may not be exactly like this, but at least take some lessons from what has happened.
So we keep learning so as to keep thriving, and we have to always maintain a positive thought. Such beautiful nuggets have been shared today, and I'd like to thank you all for attending. I'd like to hand it back over to you, Christina, so that you can close over the session for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Regina. This has been a very insightful session. I have learned a lot myself, so I'm sure all our alumni who joined in learned a lot. So first, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our panelists, starting with Dr. Gashenga, one of our vice chancellors here at Strathmore, deputy vice chancellors here at Strathmore, also to thank Eric and to thank Bilha, who are our alumni. When COVID started, one of the things that also we learned as an alumni office was to adapt. And I think each of our panelists have talked about adapting. So one way of us adapting was to organize sessions like this. And this year we've been hosting what we are calling master classes and alumni conversations. I think this has been a very, very interesting session, very enriching. And I thank all of you on behalf of everyone who joined in. Also, in a special way, I would like to thank Regina for moderating this session. I'm sure all of us will agree she has been a great host for us for this event. And finally, last but not least, I would like to thank all our alumni who joined, alumni and students, and also colleagues from Strathmore, and also I think possibly friends of some of our panelists might have joined. So I would like to take this opportunity to also thank you for taking your time to be with us. And lastly, my colleagues who have helped to bring all this together. We wish you a great weekend ahead and look out for more events like this one that we keep organizing every month. So now you're free to leave.